friends, and welcome to a new Beauty and the Boutique video with me, Katie, professional makeup artist, stylist and founder of online boutique beautyandtheboutique.com. Today I'm really lucky because I've been joined by my sister, and Tammie is an NLP practitioner, and I'm hoping that today Tammie is going to give me and you some really great advice on how we can find me time without feeling selfish and guilty for taking time out of our busy lives for ourselves. So if that sounds like something you're interested in finding out how you can find that time and feel less guilty about taking that time for yourself, stay tuned. Before we get started, Tam, can you explain kind of what you do, what NLP is, and what does it even stand for?
Yeah, definitely. So that's a brilliant question, Katie. Thank you. And thank you for having me. So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And that means neuro is our brains, linguistic is our language and how we speak, and programming is the way in which we do things, so the way in which we process things.
Can you tell us from a kind of professional stance? Because sometimes when I hear a professional say it, I'm like, oh, I need to do this, and it makes it stick in my head better. Why is it so important that we take time for ourselves and not feel guilty? Why is it so important to our kind of mental and physical well-being?
Yeah, it's really, really important, because if we continue to not observe any time for ourselves or make any time for ourselves for those little pleasures, then eventually we will actually reach burnout, and we'll feel like doing nothing, and we'll feel completely zapped of energy, and we'll be no good to ourselves and we'll be no good to anyone else. Therefore, we won't be able to kind of commit to those daily things that we're always doing day in, day out. I'll give you a practical example. So it's like, you know, if you've ever been on an aeroplane before and you hear the announcement on the aeroplane where they say, in the event of an emergency, please ensure you put your oxygen mask on yourself before helping others.
Yeah, I've always thought, oh my gosh, that's really selfish.
Yeah.
Like, poor person sat next to me.
And that's because that's the message behind that is, unless you serve yourself first, you're then in a good place to help others.
Yeah.
But if you don't serve yourself first, then you're no good to help others. So that's the kind of, you know, symbolism behind it, if you like.
So what you're saying is, if we take time for ourselves, be that, but something that I've started doing is waking up just half an hour earlier each day.
Yeah.
And that half an hour just gives me a little bit of time to, I love listening to podcasts. It's my way of switching off. I find them so fascinating.
Brilliant.
And I'll listen to a podcast whilst I do my makeup, spend a bit of extra time, so I've got the extra half an hour, and sip a cup of tea.
Yeah.
But that extra half an hour kind of, it just makes me ready for the day. And I know if I've got a busy day, I'm going to have to be giving a lot.
Yes.
A lot of kind of thought, a lot of speaking, a lot of whatever, giving. And it kind of makes me feel nourished and full to be able to do that.
Fantastic. So Kate, what you're doing is really great for you in the mornings. And what we need to be aware of is that if we don't take that time for ourselves to make sure that we have a little bit of me time, then we can find ourselves becoming quite stressed and burnt out and just finding things very difficult. And when we feel like that, it kind of stops us from being able to make good decisions and being able to be our lovely selves. So by taking that me time, we can allow ourselves to be in a great place and be able to still be us for our loved ones and be able to still keep functioning and giving.
So what you're really saying there, Tam, is actually by taking and being quite what we'd consider selfish, by taking me time, it's actually one of the most selfless things we can do, because it enables us to keep giving.
Absolutely, yeah, that's it.
So Tam, I think if we can understand why we feel so guilty when we take time for ourselves, it could then help us kind of not feel guilty if we understand why, you know, why are we feeling so guilty when we take this time for ourselves?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Katie. And let's look at what guilt is. Let's understand guilt. So guilt is a type of emotion, and it's emotion that we tend to put on ourselves, and it starts in here in our minds, and it's often felt by people who are used to doing lots of things for other people. So if we have things in everyday life, going to work, making sure that the house is all running, and we've got to do the shopping and check emails, etc. Maybe it's looking after a relative. We've always been associated to doing those things. So when we're not doing them, we feel like we're not meeting those requirements. We start to feel guilt.
I think as women, we naturally are caregivers.
Yes.
We naturally want to keep helping and giving, and when we're actually not doing that, even for a day or a few moments, we start feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not living up to my own perceived perception of what I should be doing.
Absolutely.
Is that
right? That's really good, Katie. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So the more we do things, they become habits, and if we're not meeting those or carrying out those habits, it begins to feel a bit strange because we're not following our normal routine.
If I go on holiday, it takes me a few days to actually kind of get into the mode of it's okay to relax. And I think because I've broken that habit of like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to give this, and I've got to give that. So it kind of breaks that habit.
Yeah, that's a great example, actually. That's a really good practical example of that feeling and when it sets in. And a lot of studies have actually shown that those kind of feelings of guilt are often associated to people who do a lot for others.
How do we stop this feeling of guilt? How do we stop feeling guilty for taking a moment for ourselves?
Really great question. So it all comes from what we're feeding ourselves internally, what we're telling ourselves. So the moment you sit down to paint your nails or have a cup of tea and start to feel, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, should be doing the dishwasher instead, that's the moment that you need to give yourself some self-love and talk to yourself and revert it and say, I deserve this time, I need this time, and with this time, I'm going to feel like me again. And that is so important. So it's being aware of as soon as that sort of negative talk comes in and that guilt talk, work really hard to revert it, flip it on its end, and give yourself a bit of self-encouragement and self-love.
I think that's really important because I think naturally, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm thinking most people think like this. Well, our brains tend to go to the negative before the positive, and it's really frustrating. So what you're saying is, as soon as that one little incy-wincy thought of guilt comes in, we kind of cut it and say, no, beat it up. No, I do deserve this time, because if I don't take this time, I can't continue to be me, to continue to help and serve the people and my family around me.
Absolutely, yeah, that's brilliant.
Our time is so, our lives are so full at that. It just seems to be the world we're living in. How do we practically take a little bit of me time? How on earth do we fit that into our busy lives? What does that look like?
Well, what it can look like and what it should look like is that really concentrate or just allow yourself 5 or 10 minutes a day, to take that time for yourself to do something for yourself. So something that you get enjoyment from. So that might be having your best cup of coffee. It might be putting on an uplifting song which you absolutely love and haven't heard for a while. It could be reading a chapter of a book that you're reading at the moment. It could be picking up the phone, not texting, picking up the phone and having like a 10-minute chat with a good friend or a family member. So it's about taking baby steps to this. So just doing something little, and it will just take 10 minutes that you get a lot of enjoyment from.
Can I ask, how would someone manage to find that 10 minutes if they've got young children around, and they, because you can't exactly just walk out the house and leave them. So how do you, and I imagine even bathroom time, kids want to be involved, how do you find that 10 minutes then?
Great question. So what I would say, and my suggestion there, and being a mum myself, I would suggest that as soon as you've got your little ones to bed, you've done the bath routine, they're in bed, at that point, before you go downstairs or into your bedroom to start folding, washing, getting your dinner on, just stop and think, before I start doing all my chores and my tasks, I'm going to just grab that 10 minutes of me
Yeah.
time, whether it's just to quickly sit down and read a chapter of my book, have a flick through my magazine, just to stop and just be mindful of a bit of me time. And those 10 minutes will set you up for
Yeah.
a really nice, more manageable,
Yeah.
more pleasurable evening.
I like that, Tam, because I think when I've, up until now, thought of me time, I kind of think, oh, where am I going to get that extra half day from, or that hour?
Yeah.
And actually, what you're saying is you can nourish yourself by actually allowing simply 10 minutes a day. And I'm sure we can all find 10 minutes somewhere, even if it's like what I'm doing, have been doing. I've been getting up earlier to
Yeah.
find that time.
Yeah. I want you to get your scheduler out, get your diary out, get your phone calendar out, whatever it is that you use to keep organised, and write in there 10 minutes for me.
Every day.
Every day, 10 minutes for me. And whether that be in the morning, like yourself,
Yeah.
in the afternoon, or after you've put your children to bed, or whether it's just on your lunch break at work,
Yeah.
10 minutes for me. Write it down, make it part of your daily routine, be accountable, and just see how you get on over the next 7 days and see what you notice, what's different.
Tam, I'm so pleased that you come in today and shared this, because in my mind right now, I've got this mantra and it's saying, 10 minutes for me, 10 minutes for me. And I feel like I'm justified in it now. I'm completely justified, and I hope if you're watching this, you've really taken on board some of Tammie's advice, and I hope it helps you. And like you say, let's just test it out for 7 days and see how we feel. I bet we will feel much, much better.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you soon in another video. Bye.
Bye.